Hello everybody, my name is Luke Marr and this is HauteLeMode, and today on HauteLeMode we are getting into the Brit Awards 2021, or the Brit Awards. The Brits, I'm not really sure. I don't really care enough, to be completely honest. No offense to my British brethren and sistren, but I just don't really feel like looking it up. I feel like we're all good with that. I feel like we're okay. There was fashion, it happened. It wasn't the worst, I have to say. It wasn't the best. It really wasn't the worst. There were actually kind of some shockingly interesting looks that went down. So without further ado, let's get into the Brit Awards red carpet. Also, I am wearing Peter Doe, if anybody is wondering, and I'm gonna try and keep this like this the whole time because that's how Peter wears it, and it works out really well for him, and every time I see him I'm like, wow, he's so cool looking, and then I look like this. So first up is Adam Lambert. Now he is wearing Dolce and Gabbana, and well, fitting. Yeah, it's just sort of like, you know, the whole self-hating white gay thing. It's in our DNA. I don't know what Adam Lambert is loving and living in regards to the whole gay people shouldn't get married thing. So let's move on. Next up is Billy Porter, and he is wearing 3ASFOUR. That is like the full outfit. And then he's also wearing Rick Owens, and I believe there's an Oscar de la Renta bag in there somewhere. Honestly, to me, Billy Porter is entering into his like Daphne Guinness era. He's just going for like throwing money at crazy outfits and wearing them. And I feel like the Fascinator, honestly, kind of love it for the fact that it's very British. I do feel like the Brits love a bit of a Fascinator. Like, you go to the Royal Ascot, they do their little musical thing for My Fair Lady. Everybody likes a hat over there. Philip Tracy, he's Irish, I know, but still, they like the hats over there. The other thing about the look though is it is full of what I presume are pleats, but they're not really pleats, and they're sort of like ruffled and draped in a way that sort of exposes opaque fabric underneath. And then there is a lace sleeve moment, a dress and skirt of this sort of, it's like a fringe that never really got cut all the way off, so like it's still attached. It's almost like when you cut paper up and then sort of like bring it out like that, you know? It happens and then it sort of spreads apart and it's like, oh my gosh, a snowflake. And then you have them with the little black Rick Owens Kiss boots. Overall, together, it's not really great. It's not really magical. It's not really that interesting. I appreciate that Billy took a risk. He always does. I do have to say I often, very often appreciate it. Just doesn't always hit really that well. And this is one of those moments, unfortunately. I just think there's a mishmash of things going on. I like the fact that we went with almost all black and there are little dots of silver going on, whether it's the bag and the details on the shoes, but I think there's a lot of texture happening. I think the dress is a bit amoeba-esque to me, and I don't think the shape is really working. It's just not doing anything whatsoever. The lace sleeves are just ugly, and I don't think that they sort of meld with the rest of the look that feels sort of very, you know, modern and clean and sort of like artificial. The lace just feels very old world and sort of juxtaposed against the rest of it in not an attractive way. So I appreciate what Billy is going for, just didn't get where it was going. Next up is Boy George. You would think that there would be something good here, but there's not. I do like the hat, you know, signature Boy George, Karma Chameleon, a moment. I don't know, maybe like bring back the whole new romantic thing. That would be really fun. That could be really cool. But the jacket with what looks like cut in half action figures and the black shirt with red stitching and the sweatpants and the sneakers, they're pretty rough, those sneakers. It's just so discombobulated and not even in like a fun, chic, like Gucci maximalist way. It's just like a hot garbage mess. It's just like, I went out to get groceries. And like, if that's how you go out to get groceries, fine. Happy for you. Live your best life, Boy George. But like, something in his past is haunting him because again, like Karma Chameleon, that's just what is happening here. It comes and it goes, it comes and it goes. Right now it's here, it's staying, it's not going anywhere. It's just, it's not good. not good at all. No, no. Next up is Celeste, and she is wearing Ashley Williams. This I love. Celeste is like very quirky. I think she's very weird. I think she likes a strange fashion moment, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I do think that this sort of strapped feather dress by Ashley Williams, which is a British brand, is so kooky and weird and fun at the same time, and I do love it. And again, listen, I think this is a great way to go about being kooky and weird and fun. You have a black dress with a black tight and a red shoe and like white feathers in the hair. That's all you need. You don't need to go crazy. If you're gonna do crazy, do concentration of crazy. Don't do all over the place, crazy, ridiculous pull prints and motifs and textures and yada yada all together. Just focus it in one area and we'll love it. And I think this is a great example. I think the shape is ridiculous. It reminds me of like that Daffy Duck gif where he's like walking with like his feathers off or whatever. Like that's the vibes that it's giving me, and I love that. I love the tights with it. I think it's so funny. I love the shoes too. It's so strange. It's just so weird. And I think the shape works really, really well. I think it's enjoyable. I think that it's out there enough. But again, that concentrated crazy that I love to see, especially from Celeste. Next up is Dua Lipa, aka Dua Peep. I am very proud of her. This to me is a real moment. This is a Vivienne Westwood custom look. Now, as you can see, it is a yellow off-the-shoulder dress with a sort of scoop neck effect. There's a sort of tight little corset going on here at the waist, an asymmetrical skirt, and a big old swag of fabric. Then you have a sort of garter stocking moment, a purple crocodile or a sort of embossed leather to look like a crocodile platform heel, and a signature Vivienne Westwood pearl choker. So let's break down the look, because I know a lot of people think it's very discombobulated, and I understand where people are coming from, but I actually think that this look is such a brilliant take on a bunch of really beautiful aspects of Vivienne Westwood's history that does it in a way that isn't just rehashing the oldies, but the goodies. You know what I mean? It's almost like taking all of those elements, bringing it together into a new, fun moment that, unless you're really looking for it, you wouldn't suspect that it has all the good old spices, the old traditions of Westwood, all thrown in there together. Let's start at the top, work our way down. So you have a pearl necklace, sort of choker style. It is 3 strands of pearls, and then it has the Vivienne Westwood sort of like orb with a cross on top, like surrounded by the rings, like the planets. I don't know if it was the most necessary thing in the entire world, or I do wish that maybe it had incorporated itself a bit more into the rest of the color scheme for the rest of the look. So yeah, this dress, again, scoop neck style, off the shoulder. In reality, I think that is definitely a reference back to Vivienne Westwood's love of 18th century style and dressing in the courts of Europe. We do see oftentimes when you look at like 1700s dress that the breasts are oftentimes pushed up because you have a corset or a stay. Listen, and it's sort of pushed up, all in there, bing, bang, boom, and I feel like that's sort of what's going on here. You can see the corset underneath this yellow dress in there. It's definitely cinching in the waist and then pushing everything up. It's why people in the 18th century who were really rich had great postures, because they were just, you know, like this all the time. I wish I constantly was wearing a waist trainer. It might actually help my posture. But I do think that the asymmetrical skirt and the sort of asymmetrical train aspect do sort of bring it into a little bit more of a modern sort of style. I don't think Vivienne Westwood was ever really about sort of forcing women to look like 18th century marionettes and dolls, and so in that regard, I do think this is a way for her to sort of bring around that nouveau idea of dressing for the modern woman. The yellow, beautiful. I think it's stunning. I think it's really, really lovely. And now people, I think, are very concerned about the purple sort of applique that is done over the yellow. But in my opinion, I think it's a reference to fishnet stockings. Now, fishnet stockings have been around since, I believe, the 1920s, but as it got toward the 1970s, the punk rockers of that sort of era were taking fishnets and sort of making them their own and putting them into a more anti-establishment sort of connotation. And I think here here, Vivienne Westwood, who was one of the originators of punk styles and aesthetics, is taking that element and sort of bringing it into a more sort of regal aspect. And I like that it's in this purple. I think it bounces off really super duper well. Another really subtle element is the idea that yellow and purple in color wheels are actually across from each other. So if you combine yellow and purple, it creates brown, which is what happens when colors that contrast are like put together. I think maybe there's just a little bit of some sort of weird, like funky moment going on there that's a little bit, you know, deeper than one would think. And you know what? In this moment, I will allow asymmetry. I think it's fun. I think it's a really cool nod. I think that it definitely plays into sort of this regal style, but at the same time, you know, it's definitely bringing it in a bit more modern connotations. You do have a stocking with garter moment. Now in the 18th century, some women did wear stockings and garters. I believe most women probably did, or women that could afford them probably did. Sometimes if you could not afford elastic stockings and garters, you sort of, you know, had to like tie ribbons and all that sort of stuff here. So I think that's maybe what's being referenced in this moment. I will say I do think that the black, like the actual white of the pearl choker, is a little bit strange. I do wish that there was some sort of element of maybe white brought in there or some element of purple brought in there. I just think that it should tie itself all together. I actually think it would have been a more concise sort of conscious stream of thought, and unfortunately I think it definitely does take away from the rest of the look. I think it definitely is jarring and not in a good fashion. But the thing that sort of saves it to me is these embossed shoes. I do love them. I think they're beautiful. I think they're stunning. I also think they're a reference back to Naomi Campbell's iconic 9-inch platform croc embossed shoes that she wore on the Vivienne Westwood runway that she proceeded to fall over in. Now, that is probably the most iconic falling on the runway moment, and Naomi did it so gracefully. And I think that these shoes are really just a reference sort of back to that very iconic moment. I also think the purple works really, really well because, again, it plays off of the rest of the dress and the fishnet applique. So in reality, I do actually think that this look in total encompasses a lot of sort of Vivienne Westwood historical elements and historical elements of, you know, European dress throughout the centuries. And I think that it's done in a way that is not just, you know, corned beef hash. Listen, no offense to corned beef hash, but it's just not like things chopped together, thrown on the grill, mixed all up and, you know, given to you. I think that this is actually a really smart way to go about sort of bringing in these Westwood elements and aesthetics in a way that feels new and feels exciting and feels like something you haven't seen before. I think a lot of the times now we just have people, oh, that looked really good on that runway from the 1970s, let's bring it in here, you know, and not change the fabric or not change the cut or not sort of try to update it in a way that feels modern. And to me, this is actually taking that style from the 80s or the 90s runway and bringing it into a more modern connotation, or at least just making it look new. I love this look. I think it's really great. I have to say, there are elements I don't love. The stockings, pearl choker, not obsessed. Do think it takes away. But overall, those things can't even detract from the beauty and referencing of this dress and shoe moment for moi. God, wow, I feel like I just talked about Dua Lipa for like 7 years. Next up, let's talk about Griff. Now, Griff is wearing a look by Susan Fang, which is a London-based brand, I believe. Susan Fang actually graduated from Central St. Martin's, and this look is really a custom take on the fall 2021 collection. And essentially, this dress I'm pretty obsessed with. Essentially, Susan Fang utilized this technique that she deemed air ribbon, and essentially it's a way that you can sort of manipulate tulle to sort of create 3D pockets, almost like it has air sort of like shooting through it. So it is 3D in construction, and if you zoom in, you can sort of see where the tunnel of tulle sort of ribs in and out and squiggles all the way down the dress, and then you can also see all the stitches throughout, which again, like takes a long time, takes a lot of effort. I think it's actually a fun way to go about sort of taking on tulle. A lot of the time, it's just big tulle monstrosity dresses. And this to me is a way of sort of like manipulating the fabric into doing something a little bit different than what we're used to. And I appreciate that. I think it's all about developing techniques and manipulations and textiles and things like that. That is what a good fashion designer does. That's what the strongest fashion designers ever have really truly done. Griff is also wearing this crazy headpiece. Evidently, she is taking social distancing and 6 feet apart very seriously, and this is also done by Susan Fang, so it's a custom headpiece. It's sort of like a headband that has this metal wiring coming out and creating almost like a veil of metallic metalness. And I love it. I feel like it's fun. I feel like it's out there. I feel like it's whimsical and weird, but at the same time sort of sustainable and upcycling, and that also is partially what the Susan Fang brand is about. The paillette or like crystal or glass belt definitely does tie into the headpiece. There are those sort of paillettes or crystals in the different aspects where the sort of metal pieces and strings and wires meet. And also you can see it at the hem of the dress where the sort of air ribbons come out and end. In reality, I feel like it's definitely a lot, but I'm not super duper mad about it. Overall, I actually have to say I'm very grateful when a celebrity and a musician sort of brings a new, cool, interesting brand to the forefront, and I feel like I now know who Susan Fang is and I'm kind of obsessed. So like, thank you to Griff. I appreciate taking a step out, doing something a little bit different, a little bit kooky, a little bit crazy. I'm about it. It pays off in my world. Next up is Haim. Now they are all wearing the Row. The Row, if you guys do not know, is the luxury brand that was started by the Olsen twins. It is very much so influenced by the likes of Martin Margiela, Hermes, Martin Margiela for Hermes. There's a lot of sort of like luxury moments going on at the Row. You're never gonna get some like crazy over the top like Dior new look moment, or you know, some crazy like, I don't know, Balenciaga silhouettes or anything like that. It is very much so like rich people clothes for rich people. And when I say rich people clothes for rich people, I mean like really rich people. For really rich people. Now let's start with Este. She is wearing a black set. Now it's just a button-down shirt that's sort of been buttoned right to sort of like the sternum area, the lower sternum. And then you have a black belt, which like she's wearing a pant, so a belt is appropriate, and a sort of baggy, you know, pleated pant. Again, nothing crazy, nothing ridiculous, nothing over the top. And the issue with the Row styles like this is they don't really translate super duper interestingly on red carpets. I just think that in reality, it's never gonna be something you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But I'm sure that each of those pieces is beautifully made in the most luxurious fabrics. I'm sure that each of the Haim sisters feels really good. Their bodies against this luxury ass fabric that's very expensive probably feels really great, and so I'm happy for them in that regard. In the middle you have Danielle, and she is wearing a black shirt, black sweater I believe, a khaki front pleated pant, a black belt because they're all about the belts, and a black shoe. Now again, even though these three women are wearing the Row, which is sort of just like rich people basics, they all do definitely look different. They're not, you know, dressed like a pair or a set. They're sort of their own person at the same time, which I do have to say I really enjoy about Haim. Again, the look isn't really crazy, but to me it gives definite sort of like old 90s sportswear, Americana, you know, Calvin Klein, before Raf Simons, Michael Kors, early 90s, like late 80s. And I have to say, again, like it is kind of boring in that regard, but like it's wearable ass clothing that feels really beautiful on your skin. And so in that regard, I'm sure that Danielle is really enjoying herself and her body is saying, thank you so much for letting me wear this. Last but certainly not least is Alana, and she is wearing a black sweater vest, which like, listen, Harry Styles is not the only person that can bring back a sweater vest, a white button-down shirt, and a black pleated pant as well. I do not like the brown shoe because it's all black, so like we could have just went with a black shoe. It just would have worked, you know, made sense. I understand you're trying to be a little bit different, but you know, sometimes brown and black don't always work together. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't though. This is one of those times. But overall, I think it's definitely fun. Reminds me of my grandfather. Feels very British because my grandfather is very British. It's just sort of like boring old British grandpa or granddad, as some may call them. I'm not mad about it. Overall, again, not really crazy, not really out there, but I definitely think that it's a different sort of way of going about doing red carpet dressing. It's just like nice workwear stuff. You're not really thinking too hard about it. It feels really good and it's really expensive, but it's not like a Louis Vuitton monogram that like screams in your face, oh my God, I'm so expensive. It's like subtle luxury. and I like subtle luxury, so not mad. Next up is Harry Styles, and he is wearing Gucci. Now this is from the fall 2021 collection that just came out. It's the Aria collection, which was like Gucci hacking Balenciaga. You're getting that sort of 1960s, 1970s graphic. It's definitely old. It looks like it belongs to the word linoleum. It's giving you old dead hoarder inside house wallpaper. That's the vibe of this suit. Now, I do have to say that this suit has been adapted to Harry. It was not flared on the runway, neither in the jacket nor in the pant, but here Harry Lambert has actually sort of like made a definite sort of flare towards the bottom of the jacket, and then the pants are also flared. I do like that it's paired with the little sneakers. I think it's fun. I think it makes it a little bit more casual, and you have this sort of brown bamboo bag from Gucci, which is not available to shop. You can't even buy it. That's how exclusive Harry Styles is. Honestly, I'm not really mad about this. I'm sort of at the place now with Harry Styles that like I expect Gucci. I do sort of want these things to be pushed in the future. I do think there should be a little bit of a progression at a certain point, Harry's, but I'm not upset about it. I think it looks good. I think it has fun elements. I like the fact that at the bottom where the flares are, you sort of have these little brown and sort of creamish squares on both sides that sort of even like further sort of embrace and enunciate the whole idea of the flare. I think it's just a nice suit. I think it's fun. I think it's funky. I think it plays into Gucci's aesthetics. I don't think Harry looks bad in it. I like that he carries a handbag now. It makes me laugh. I think it's fun. Listen, it's never bad to have a handbag, let me tell you. Overall, not mad about it. Not dying over it either, but not mad about it. Next up is Heady One. I do not know him, unfortunately, but I wish I did. And I will get to know him now because he's wearing Louis Vuitton by Virgil Abloh. I believe this is the fall 2021 menswear collection. I just love this jacket. I love it so much. I personally believe that this jacket is a reference to that sort of like insert, something you might like put underneath a rug. I love this. I think it's great. I think it's a super fun pattern to play on. I like seeing the LV monogram throughout. In the exact antithesis of everything that Haim's The Row Outfits is about, it's I have a lot of money, and here, let me tell you all about it. But that, to me, is what that Louis Vuitton monogram is about. I don't think the Louis Vuitton monogram is ever trying to be subtle. The one time Marc Jacobs tried to make it subtle, apparently didn't really do that well, or at least it wasn't perceived as well as it should have been. And Bernard Arnault, who is the owner of Louis Vuitton, said, no, make it loud, make it big, make it brash. So to me, it's sort of just like the aesthetics of the brand is in your face, over the top, kind of screams at you. And honestly, I think that Virgil sort of brings in fun little nuances that I do think that certain fashion designers might see as too lowbrow and makes them just sort of fun and frisky and understandable to the everyday person. And in that regard, I think that's why Virgil probably sells a lot of product is the lowbrow stuff, it works, it sells, it's understandable to customers. And I think that this is just a really nice, fun jacket. I like the cut of it. It's very big. It's very sort of oversized. It creates a definite shape. I think the motif is lovely. I do think that it's just a really fun, nice, subtle nod. And the rest of the outfit, the black turtleneck and the black pant, I think definitely allow it to take center stage. I think the shoe could have been better. I do, genuinely. Maybe like a silver shoe, a little element of silver in the shoes somewhere, but overall, I love the coat. I don't really care about anything else, to be honest. Next, let's talk about Lianne La Havas, and she is wearing Schiaparelli. Now, this is from, I believe, the spring 2021 Haute Couture collection. It is this beautifully beaded tiger print dress. It's stunning. It's so beautiful. It has a lovely train. It's very, very simple in terms of cut. It's not really trying to do a lot in terms of silhouette, but the fact that it is a beaded tiger motif is crazy, takes a lot of handwork, definition of haute couture, etc., etc. I love the dress. I think it's beautiful. I like to see the way that when it creases at certain angles, the light reflects off of it so brilliantly. I will say I'm not obsessed with the shoes nor the gloves. I think the dress is so striking in and of itself. Just the fabrication of this dress doesn't need a lot. It's a really stunning dress. And I think the gloves are a little bit odd there. I understand they might possibly be a reference to the Schiaparelli collection that had black gloves with little gold sort of nails and playing on the whole idea of surrealism and Elsa Schiaparelli and Daniel Roseberry and like history and all that sort of stuff. I get it. I just don't think I love it. I don't think it works in the way that we want. Also, when I can see the differentiation of the black in terms of like shading from the glove and the black of the beads on the dress, that kills my vibe. I also just think the shoes are not major. I understand they're playing into the black of the glove, but there were great Schiaparelli shoes from that collection that I'm sure could have been 100% just utilized here in this look, in this moment. And I just don't think they play off the dress super duper well. In reality, it feels like they're sort of taking away the shine of the dress, although as we see the way that the light reflects off of it, that's difficult, but still, it's trying, and that's a problem to me. Honestly, love the dress, obsessed with it, so happy to see it on a red carpet, and I hope to see it more on the red carpet because honestly, I'm not afraid of people re-wearing, and it's just a beautiful dress, so like, I'm not upset to see it over and over and over again, but the styling, the shoe and the glove, not working for me, unfortunately. Next up, let's talk about Little Mix. Now, first up, let's talk about Jade Thirlwall. She is in the middle, and she is wearing Vivienne Westwood. There is this sort of asymmetrical drape moment going on here. I don't love it. I understand that like they're all going for a sort of white moment. I do wish that that corset there was a little bit more exposed. Maybe we could see the boning. I understand like the asymmetrical drape going on there, definitely very diaphanous, etc., etc. But I just think the fold over flap is not really that great. I don't think the sort of pulling and all that sort of stuff, I can't see it as something that's really lovely and really wonderful and sort of like plays on the body. I'm sure that it's trying to, and I'm sure that in both Jade and Vivienne Westwood's heads it did. I just don't think it's really like a moment to write home about at all. Next up is Lianne Pinnock, and she is wearing Maison Margiela. Now, this is most definitely, in my opinion, a sort of reference to John Galliano's, I'm gonna go like mid-90s collection, where he essentially, for his own brand, John Galliano, was sort of referencing this period of time in probably the 18th or 19th century where young women would essentially throw water on themselves in white dresses, and it would like mimic the sort of marbling effect of certain sculptors that could get marble to mirror fabrics in such a beautiful way. And I think that's sort of what is trying to, happen here. De Pezza is a designer who most recently has sort of revived this, but actually developed a sort of technique to make it look so crazily realistic. Unfortunately, I don't think that this look with all the sort of pinning and tucking and sewing really like does it in the way that De Pezza does it. It's kind of easy to tell that it's artificial, and I don't think that's exactly what you want. I do like where Lianne Pinnock is going with this. I do think it's a really smart sort of nod. I do think it's a really smart sort of reference, especially like sort of playing on the idea of pregnancy. Listen, use it. I'm all about it, baby, can't wait till it's born, happy for you, but also use the prop if you got it. I do think that it sort of plays into this sort of Madonna, sort of like motherly-esque sort of style. The fabric, again, sort of drapes beautifully on the body, but I think the sort of style of trying to mimic that water thrown on white dress moment isn't hitting in the way that it could have had we worked with De Pezza. Just saying. The last member of Little Mix is Perry Edwards, and she is wearing David Coma. This is definitely going for the sort of, again, emphasis on the baby bump. Now you have a bralette sort of style with a glove attachment, which I actually do kind of love. I feel like a glove into bra moment is something you don't see a lot. I'm into it. I think it's fun, I think it's different, I think it's cute. I love a glove. I do think the high-waisted skirt, though, is an interesting choice. I think it would have been more interesting to actually allow the baby bump to sort of be fully seen. I just feel like the high-waisted style doesn't leave a lot of room. And otherwise, why not just allow that little sliver of skin to just sort of be covered by what would have been a whole dress? So that's sort of my thoughts on it. I do think the sort of tight-fitted moment is nice. I'm not really super duper mad about the skirt and the fact that there are those sort of ruffles right before the knee starts. I think it adds a little bit of texture, but even then I think there should have been more of like a gradient of non-texture to texture. Honestly, I think it's not great. It's not really that amazing, not really that wonderful either. So I appreciate what Little Mix was going for. I just think the looks all could have been a bit stronger each. Next up is Mabel, and she is wearing Tony Ward. The key lime green, I appreciate going for a bright color. The crystallized piping on the cutout and asymmetrical neckline, not as appreciative of. What is it doing? I think that's my question. This is not for me to assume. Mabel, Tony Ward, what were we going for here? What was the direction? Was it one flew over the person's shoulder? Like, what was the vibe here? I'm trying to understand why we would want to do that. The cutout on one side, I understand, I get it, you know, cutouts are fun, and then it sort of falls right into that high slit. The draping of the fabric, also not really understanding, because it's just very heavy on this side, and I do think that asymmetry, that sort of balances, although that doesn't make any sense. I do think that if you're going to use so many elements in an asymmetrical look, have them sort of balanced. So instead of that sort of draping being over there, it could have maybe been over here. It just, I'm not really getting it. It's just a look and not a look, like L-E-W-K. It's just like a look, like it's there, it's existing. Not really that well either. Overall, I think this was going for like a bombshell moment. I don't know the technical term for like when a bomb doesn't go off, but like a dud. It just, it didn't hit in the way that we wanted. Next up is Maya Jama, and she is wearing Area, which is a New York-based brand. In reality, it's really a little bolero blazer top with a skirt, and then in between that sort of cutout midriff section is Area's signature crystals. So the crystals are most definitely piping the hem. That's sort of what Area is very, very well known for. And then you sort of have these swags of different sort of costume crystals going all the way throughout. In reality, it sort of reminds me just a little bit of Schiaparelli's very iconic sort of skeleton dress. I know that that's probably not what Area was going for there, but that's sort of what it reminds me of. And then as you get to the hem, there is another sort of set of crystal piping and little strands of this costume jewelry. I just think it's sort of like signature Area, I think in a more sort of commercial, simplistic, like well put together way. It's not really super duper exciting, but at the same time, I do think the use of the crystals are well done in a way that isn't sort of overbearing, nor is it, you know, just a black dress. Next up is MNEK, and he is wearing Robert 1. Beautiful, stunning, love it. Robert 1 is a London-based designer, and honestly, I love seeing this. There is a blue sort of silky satin jacket with some sort of button-down shirt, which you can see sort of at the bottom falls out into a crazy signature Robert 1 pleat, but also the collar comes out from underneath the blazer and is pleated too, which is so hot. Like, that's the shit that I love about Robert 1, is like those little details of like bringing in those pleats. It's just lovely. It's really stunning. Honestly, when you think about a lot of Robert's work or you look at it, it does sort of remind you of like birds. The pleated pants, I will say, I do wish they were also in a silky satin. I like the way that the whole sort of top of the look reflects, but I understand for like a pant, you don't really want it in like maybe a silk for whatever reason, but I do think that that sort of muted blue is definitely seeable. I see how muted it is compared to the rest of the sort of sheen of the jacket and shirt. And so I just sort of wish we had carried that all the way through on the pant. I do think that would have sort of just knocked it out of the park. But honestly, I'm just gonna focus on the top half. I think the shirt is so lovely. I love the pleats at the collar and the cuffs and the way that it sort of falls down. I think the jacket fits really, really beautifully. I actually think it's really, really lovely. I like the slits up the side of the sleeves that allow the pleated cuffs to sort of be seen. Overall, I really like it. I do wish that we had followed up on the bottom in the pant section with silk satin. But besides that, MNEK, very proud of you. You're killing it. Doing a great job. Next up is Olivia Rodrigo, and she is wearing Dior. I understand, like, we just got our driver's license. I get it. Why Dior? Why Dior? There's so many good British brands that could have been looked to. Actually, Olivia Rodrigo recently wore Molly Goddard in her music video, so I'm sort of like, why didn't we do that? If we were looking for like tulle confection, Molly Goddard, synonymous. Tulle confection. Makes a lot of sense. This highlighter yellow Dior strapless tulle dress with a black belt sucks. It's not good. There's not really anything amazing about it. Listen, she's young. I understand that. She's just sort of like coming into the whole fashion sort of world. This is probably like, I believe this is her debut sort of British performance or something along those lines. So I understand like kind of going for the cutesy like young sort of ingenue experience, but like not in Dior. Anything but that. Listen, anything but that. It's blah. I don't think that the highlighter yellow screams youth in the way that Maria Grazia wants it to for her Dior. The black belt makes it like so much older than also they want it to be. So again, you're trying to do like youth, but it's very uncomfortable. It's making me feel nervous. I get what she's going for, sweet sort of princess cut, all of that, but it's just giving me homecoming dress. You know, it's not even giving me junior prom. It's definitely not giving me prom dress. It's not giving me junior, and it's just giving me, mom needed to find a dress for your weird dance. So for Olivia's performance, she wore another Dior look, and it is a red sort of caftan style with a shimmery sequined or pailleted bra top and short underneath. It's not good. Again, it's very blah. It's just Maria Grazia's Dior. It's a piece of fabric layered over a paillette bra top and shorts. And no offense, it probably costs a lot of money to make that, and it really shouldn't have because they could have picked it up at Topshop. It's not really fashion design in my opinion, it's mood boarded. Anybody could have made that. Literally anybody. There's nothing about this that screams Dior, and that's so sad and like uncomfortable and weird, and I hope that she doesn't start wearing Dior exclusively, because like that's not going to be cute. I'm not going to enjoy that. I'm not going to let that ride. I know who she is because I watched Bizarre Vark. It was a dark phase of my time, Team 10. But I need that to not happen here. I really don't. I want better for her. I want her to grow and not be sartorially stunted by Dior in her early years, because like trauma. There will be trauma from that. Next up is Olly Alexander, and he is wearing Gucci. Now this again is also from the fall 2021 collection. It is the star look with the feather cuffs. There is a blue little button-down shirt underneath. I like this look. I like the stars. I thought it was a fun little motif from Alessandro Michele's Gucci. It's not like ugly. It's just sort of like rock star, 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 star. That feels very Gucci-esque. You know, Gucci like to dress celebrities and stars and I don't know, Mick Jagger, and you know, now it's Harry Styles and Celeste and musicians and Billie Eilish, you know, so like I get where that's sort of coming from in that regard. I think the feather cuffs definitely work. I think they're bold, they're brash, they're Gucci, they're avant-garde, but they're gross. It's great and I like it. The shoes I think work really, really well. I like the black and the white. I think it plays off super sweetly. Overall, I'm not really mad about this. I think it's fun. I think it's easy. It's weird, wacky Gucci, but like still sort of understandable. He did go on to wear a Harris Reed halter crop top and flared pant set in a black lace with crystal detail. Not as obsessed with this. I know Harris doesn't really do like a whole lot of performance wear, but I'm kind of expecting a little bit more for Harris Reed. I know that they deliver looks. Like I reviewed the most recent collection. There's some moments in there, and I do wish that maybe more of that sort of deconstructed, punky aspect came through in this look. To me, it just feels like I could have picked this up anywhere, and that doesn't read Harris Reed to me. It's not reading Reed. I just want something more exciting in that regard. You know, I wish maybe the lace had been in a different color. We've seen really beautiful pink laces from Harris Reed in the past. Something about this just feels very like Fashion Nova-y, and I don't want that for Harris Reed. Like that's not a road I want. I want them to go down. Let's work on that team. Next up is Rina Sawayama, and she is wearing Balmain. Now this is from Balmain's like most recent haute couture show. To be completely honest, I think it was very, very well known that after that one singular Balmain show, Balmain stopped doing haute couture again. Pulling out the Balmain haute couture, I don't know if that was the best decision we've ever made over there, Miss Sawayama. It's a tulle confection monstrosity in purple. It's all deconstructed and asymmetrical. Again, the tulle thing, there's only so much you can really do with it at this point that makes it interesting. There's a very few designers I'm willing to like let it keeps sort of going on. Molly Goddard is one, Tomoko Izumi is the other. Either of those would have been really good choices right now. So again, it's a sort of tulle fan style. It comes and sort of creates a bralette moment that's deconstructed so you can see cutouts, and then sort of like curves in purple, and then it's just a big old skirt with a big old train. But in reality, it's just not really like doing anything. thing. There's a lot going on, but what is it saying? To me, it's not saying a lot. I would have loved to see, I don't know, like Comme des Garçons or, you know, any of like the Comme Dover Street markety sort of brands like Norkai Ninomiya or like Junya Watanabe. I think that could have actually been like a really sort of fun way to go about bringing in Rina's work, like one of her most famous songs. I would have rathered something more interesting, something that we don't really see a lot on red carpets. And to me, like, I see a lot of Tool now at this point, and I want Rina to sort of kick it out of the park. I don't think this is that. I don't think this is like the debut Rina Sawayama red carpet moment that like we all deserve. I think we deserve a little bit more exciting, a little bit more out there, a little bit more avant-garde, a little bit more thought through. Because this to me isn't really all that thought through. And I want it to be a lot more intellectual in that regard. So I get what we're going for. I appreciate the experimentation. Next time, let's push it to the limit. Finally, what everybody's been waiting for, Taylor Swift in Miu Miu. Listen, I thought we were having a really good moment over there with Miss T-Swizz when she wore that Oscar de la Renta look. This to me is like Taylor slowly sinking back into mundane territory. It's a custom Miu Miu look. Again, custom. This was custom made. It's a bra top with some sort of fireworky embroidery and then a high-waisted skirt, also in the same fireworky embroidery in a sort of muted grayish. It's just not that exciting, you know what I mean? Like, Taylor is receiving this global icon award, and like, I'm not saying that she's not a global icon, but like, the fashion is not telling me global icon. I honestly was actually really happy about the last look that I saw Taylor Swift in, because it was really fun, it was very fashion, it was very sort of out there, and it was cool, and something about this just doesn't hit in that way, you know what I mean? I think there were a lot of really cool looks from the most recent Miu Miu collection. They definitely were more wintry, but I think it was cool and exciting and sort of petite and pretty plays on traditionally sort of like puffer wears. And I think that could have been a moment. Listen, it might have been a little bit too hot in London, although I've been to London quite a few times. Never usually too hot. So I think in that regard, there could have been a lot of sort of different plays. I also think Miuccia Prada references to English designers like Mary Quant with like a little mini skirt and sort of playing into that mojo is not only a sort of nod to, you know, British fashion culture, but also Miuccia Prada and like her early loves and Miu Miu, which is a brand that's sort of based on her sort of youthful endeavors in fashion. And so to me, this just feels very run of the mill. And so I would have rather we just got to look off the rack, you know what I mean? Like, why waste the custom look if we were just gonna do that? I want better for Taylor Swift. I feel like I'm gonna get dragged for this, but I don't really care. I think that this shit needs to be heightened. I think Taylor is great, and I don't think that her wardrobe oftentimes reflects that. So whoever the stylist is, gotta fix it. So with that, we are done with our red carpet reviews. Let's talk about a best and a worst look of the night. I'm gonna give the best to... I'm gonna give it to Dua. I know that's a controversial opinion, but like, I really liked it. I think if I took out the necklace and the stocking garter moment, it's phenomenal. I still think even with those things on there, phenomenal, really beautiful. But MNEK is like a very close second, you know what I mean? Like neck and neck there. Worst dressed is gonna have to go to... I don't really want to do this because it's the first time interacting, but like that Olivia Rodrigo highlighter dress, it's just bad. It's bad Dior. Like if you're wearing Dior, you're up for the slaughter of the lamb. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to work out well. You know, you're putting yourself in bottom territory over there. So like, be conscious of that. And also just like the belt, it's just like a stab to the heart. I think the heart's over here. The highlighter yellow, just like just a real whack to the head. It's just rough. So that is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next one, and TTYL.